Hey all, Kunik here, back with another RPG horror story for you all today. In this story, we have a player that is quite noticeably cheating, and rather than confront the player, the DM decides to take the nuclear option to teach them a lesson. With that all said, let's roll for initiative and begin the story. I was playing 3.5 with a homebrew setting with my friends/roommates back in college. We were using pen and paper, and we had been playing weekly sessions for a little over a year, and we were level 9. We had a paladin, me, a ranger, DM PC, and generally just an extra body, a fighter, a druid, a rogue, and our problem child, the sorcerer. He was a dragonborn sorcerer who appeared to be very powerful, with high stats in almost everything. I'm talking level 1, max possible 18 in charisma and constitution, and great in everything else. For the longest time, we just trusted he had fantastic dice rolls during character creation, since we were all friends at the table. During one session, as it turned out our second to last, our sorcerer was attacked by a giant. I don't remember the exact roll, but it was in the mid-20s with bonuses. Sorcerer says,
"Phew, just missed me."
This raised some eyebrows. He had cast shield, but the implication was that his AC was normally higher than my paladin and the fighter, who both wore heavy armor. Our DM said, "That doesn't sound right. Are you sure?" And Sorcerer replied, "Yup." The session ended without much further incident. This really ticked off our rogue, who had rolled terribly when creating his character, but still always played fair. After the session was over, our rogue took a glance at the sorcerer's character sheet and showed me and the DM. Turns out, our sorcerer was cheating. His natural AC was not achievable with a level 9 sorcerer, with no AC enhancing items, no heavy armor, and no multiclassing. And his HP rolls were 7 above his max possible at level 9. This obviously threw his super high stat block into question too. Next week, we find ourselves in some weird demonic mansion while hunting down our arch enemy. At one point, forced to sit at a banquet table, our sorcerer was asked by the archdemon at the head of the table to do something. He refused, and the DM asked him to roll a dex save. His dex was 11, his lowest stat. He rolled a 5, and immediately both his hands were cut off by an invisible demon. The whole table, aside from the rogue who was in on it, collectively thought, crap. And I realized in panic that our DM and rogue had probably planned this. The sorcerer player just sat there, wide-eyed and in shock, as our DM had effectively neutered his character for combat purposes. He said, "That's not fair. Surely I would have seen something that would have prevented that kind of instant dismemberment." But our DM just smirked and said, "That's the way the dice rolled." The rogue said,
"Too bad your impossibly high AC couldn't stop it."
And it was at this point, the sorcerer knew we were aware of his cheating. We had an obvious combat situation coming up, but our sorcerer said, "I'll stand there doing nothing on my turns," poured a drink, walked back to his room, and shut the door. The session basically ended there. My DM told us he was going to give him a magical way to restore his hands later in the session. He just wanted one combat where the sorcerer was useless so he would learn his lesson. We never played with those characters, or with that same group of people, ever again. It felt too awkward to play with our sorcerer since we were all his friends, despite his immature meltdown. Afterwards, he always came up with excuses not to play, and eventually we stopped trying. End post. Yeah, I think I'm a broken record at this point, but generally speaking, when you have issues like this at your table, especially as the dungeon master, you really should just talk with your players in private. When you do something like this, it really sets the example that you're going to make an example of them if they decide to pull anything over your head. And while yes, that may be effective in fixing the issue for most players, it also doesn't feel good for them because effectively they've been exposed as a cheater to the rest of the party. And yes, they should not have cheated in the first place, but it's still wrong to out them to everyone at the table, especially if they're friends with them in real life. So, in my opinion, the DM really should have just talked to him in private to fix the issue, and followed that with scrutinizing his future plays. Anyhow, that's all for this story today. Now, just a heads up, there's going to be a special 4th story coming out tomorrow, so look forward to it. And if you like this story and you want to see more stories just like it, be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell notification icon to be notified of my future videos. As always, the source of the video is in the description below. Anyhow, while you wait for my next video to come out, here are a few related videos that you can watch in the meantime.